Good Monday morning. This is PodBros. I'm Luke.
And I'm Nick.
And we are a production of Sound Bros Productions. Productions. We have a special guest today because we didn't have one on Friday. So...
How special is he?
Well... We're not allowed to say... How family-friendly and PC is this show?
Not very, especially after Friday's show.
That is true. Friday's show is pretty brutal. Well, he's not retarded, so that's good. I mean, a little on the spectrum.
Mentally impaired.
So we have our friend Corbin in the studio. Good morning, Corbin.
Good morning, Luke.
Welcome to the show. Glad to have you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And there's the door. Have a great day.
All right, see you later.
So Corbin's a good buddy of ours. We've known Corbin for a while. He actually used to be a roommate of mine for a little bit.
How did you meet Corbin?
That was a comfy couch.
Ooh, how did we meet?
I think
theater?
Was that theater? I think so.
We were doing, what was that, Macbeth?
One of those shows, because I met Joey first.
Right.
And then I met
Doing
you.
what play, though? What play were you doing when you met Joey?
That was Hamlet,
Tempest.
I think.
No, I wasn't in
The
Hamlet.
Tempest.
I think it was The Tempest.
Okay.
And then I didn't do a show with them for a while. And then I think it was Macbeth. Yeah, that's the one that
Macbeth,
I actually liked.
and then we did 12th Night, and we got to sword fight.
Yes.
And it was awesome.
And I have a video
that was
of
the best part of the
by
show.
The way.
Honestly,
It was. You know, I think that was the best part of the show. That and watching Luke stumble around the stage drunk.
That was
the many stages of Luke being drunk. Was
when you
hysterical.
get requested to be a drunk uncle for a Shakespeare play.
What's
right?
funny
Things
is
that you say, this is going to be a great idea, and then halfway through you're like, what have I done? Why am I doing
You know
this?
what's great about that play is that when you watch it, after watching it a couple times, you realize that the character that you played is actually the main character.
Right, yeah.
It's like, it's all about him. The story is written in such a way that you wouldn't notice it.
Well, you don't notice it.
You have no idea that he's the main character.
He's the main character, yeah.
Because it's like, well, there's the prince and all these other characters, and you're like, wait a minute.
Well, because when you think about Shakespeare, or when you think about any type of older play, right?
Right.
We tend to put main characters per the station or the class of the character, right?
Exactly.
So, you watch a movie or see a play and there's a prince in it, and you're like, oh, well, the prince is the main character, or the
princess,
the rich grandmother, or the prince is the character, or the parents, right, are the main characters, and you never think like the side, in this case, the side drunk uncle who's taking care of his niece, who is the head, quote unquote, of the house, is the main character. It's just interesting to how people interpret those different things and change that stuff out. I enjoyed that play though.
It was fun.
I think I had 130 something lines.
I enjoyed watching you guys do that play.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Shakespeare.
I am not a Shakespeare fan, actually. At all.
He tends to be a little bit dark.
You know what it is for me is it's the repetition.
Yeah.
You could take a Shakespeare play. This is my personal opinion. If you disagree, tough luck.
Well, tell us about it if you disagree.
So yeah, if you disagree, I want to hear about it. But
well, I disagree already. I
okay,
don't even know what you're gonna say.
All right. So yeah, but that's just why you're here. I feel like in every Shakespeare play, if you were to take like the first 10 minutes of the show and then stop, you would get everything you need out of the play. It's like he tells the story over and over and over again throughout the play.
You do understand that.
Which is why at the end of at the end of some Shakespeare plays or some Broadway shows, they do a recap and they can do it in a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Well, you do understand that most of our modern styles of writing are based on Shakespeare. It's the reason why you have your first paragraph when you're writing an essay. Your first paragraph is essentially you explaining what's in your entire paper.
Write to Mexicans very often.
No. A term paper.
Oh. Sorry, not essay.
Not
like
essay. No, not like that. Not like that at all.
Okay, yeah.
Like
All right.
an essay. Like, okay, kids, it's time for you to write an essay. It's due at the end of the week.
The worst.
Anyway.
Or a test with essay questions.
Oh, no, those are the
Who
best.
invented that?
No. Essay questions
Probably the
are
same
the best.
person who invented homework.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hold on a
I
second.
hate homework,
Hold on
too.
a second here, guys. Hold on a second. Hold up. From an educator's perspective, an essay question helps me understand a whole lot more about what you know about the topic than you answering questions that are
fill in the blank.
fill in the bubble out of four questions.
Fill in the bubble, yeah.
You know, multiple choice.
Yeah, I guess I can understand. I can see that, but I would say that I have the problem that I have with it is that if you were never taught a proper cell structure or a sentence structure.
Sentence structure. Oh,
Yeah,
are we doing
cell
biology
structure
or
is-
writing?
is a different subject altogether.
Biology or writing?
We
We're
watched.
not talking about mitosis here.
No. I showed Corbin the first episode of Better Off the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's sitting there and he's talking about the pumpkins.
Oh, yeah.
And they attack the pumpkin cell structure. And they grow a magnificent downy coating and die.
Oh, my
As
gosh.
mold. Spores in uniforms.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, anyway.
Johnny, Rebecca, Steve, you're with Dr. Bamba on this one. Everyone else,
you're welcome.
You're welcome. Anyway, I'm sorry. So, if you don't understand proper sentence structure or the writing techniques, so for me, when I got to the age that you start writing essay questions, which was for me around middle school,
Right.
I hadn't gotten all of the English part. Like I hadn't understood how to write it because I didn't like it so much, and I never had in depth. I mean, and it's on me, of course, for the learning side of it, but I learn a little bit differently.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah, so I learned a little bit differently, and I never, getting into middle school, writing essays was horrifically hard for me. And I wasn't able to actually write an essay until English 101 in college.
Well, I think that part of that has to do with maybe the change in the school system, because we've talked about this before, but I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, what was different between your education and my education 10 years later? And the difference is that by the time me and Joe, our younger brother, were going into school, my parents had dealt with crappy school for you and Isaac and Vince.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was like we moved literally from school to school to school
To find the right
to maintain the correct
level.
of learning. And so, I mean,
And I think that's part of the reason why I support homeschooling.
I didn't
because you
stay
can
in the
learn.
same school for longer than 3 years until high school.
Wow.
High school was the first time.
That's right. I remember you guys jumping around a lot.
High school was the first time that I was ever in a school for longer than 3 years.
Really?
Yep.
Well, if you went to school out here, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, so I went when I was going to school, I went to Miller Valley.
Okay.
And I was in Miller Valley from 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And then it was 1st through 5th. So, I mean, or kindergarten through 5th was Miller Valley Elementary School. And then I went to Mile High Middle School downtown, Prescott. I don't know why I didn't go to Granite Mountain Middle School. Because there were two middle schools. There was Mile High and Granite. So I went to Mile High.
Probably because of where you were, and a lot of that has to do with where you are.
Oh, educationally?
Yeah, no, not physically, your physical location.
Oh. We were closer to Granite.
Exactly.
So I went to the farther school because of the buses.
You can think integration for that one.
Oh, that's stupid.
Yeah, it's the dumbest.
Because
thing
I
ever.
got kicked off of the school bus and then had to walk that lovely distance.
Yeah.
Or ride my bike that lovely distance, which
Wait.
was super fun.
Were you closer?
Yeah, we're closer. We were on
Where's Granite Middle School?
right up Iron Springs.
Is it really closer?
I would have to look at a map. I might actually pull that up here in a minute, but
I'm just thinking about the distance walking from where we were to Miller Valley, and I think they might be the same distance.
Miller Valley was really close. I mean, we were literally just down the road from Miller Valley. I'm going to pull up a map now because now I'm curious.
Anyway, so you went to Miller Valley. And
anyway,
then,
I went to 3 years of Miller Valley. Then I went to 3 years of middle school, and then 4 years of high school. And we moved in between there. So we moved between middle school and high school.
And you moved.
So I went out of Prescott, and so instead of going to Prescott High School,
you went to Bradshaw.
I went to Bradshaw, and I'm happy that I went to Bradshaw, and I'm glad we moved. But I'm bummed at the same time because Prescott had a much better theater program.
Right.
And I would have loved to have been part of their theater program.
You helped build the Bradshaw theater program, though.
Kinda. I was an arrogant, very... Yeah, no, I helped. I was in a number of plays.
Weren't you one of the first thespians from Bradshaw?
I was the... So I say that I am a founding member of the Thespian Society for Bradshaw Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, I am the second of the group because the teacher at the time, who will remain nameless because I really am not interested in having this argument 15, 20 years later, she wouldn't allow me to be part of the Thespian Society when we were applying for thespian troupe status.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of, the kids that wanted to all signed up, and I was one of the ones that signed up, and she wouldn't let me. And so they all are founding members, and then I was the next group in right after them. So as soon as we got it, then I was able to sign up and be part of the thespian group.
Lame.
So I just straight up, I tell it like it is, and like it is I'm a founding freaking member because that teacher was a scumbag and treated me like garbage.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I went to Bradshaw, I had a crappy drama teacher too.
You didn't have the same one, right?
No, it was a different one.
Yeah. Here's the crazy part is that the drama teacher's husband...
Your drama teacher had actually left the year before I came to Bradshaw.
Yeah, and she's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to become a theater teacher. Because of the...
I thought my teacher was one of the reasons you wanted to be a theater teacher.
Your teacher was the other reason.
He was the worst.
Because he was hands down the worst.
This.
You actually...
I think I know him.
You know him.
This,
yeah,
Corbin.
You've actually...
Hands down.
Yeah, you've actually performed with him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Here in town.
If I know... If I'm thinking the right person, yeah, I worked with him.
Yeah, we're not going to say his name on the air, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about it afterwards. But yeah, no, he was horrible. There is...
I've actually heard stories from people that went to Bradshaw, even after you graduated, that are like, yeah, when the other teacher came in, it was so much better, because now they have a new teacher who is actually a theater teacher, and she is apparently phenomenal.
Oh, she rocks.
So
we actually should go by.
I know she was a great English teacher. She was an English teacher when I went to school there.
Mm-hmm.
And then she took over the theater program, I think the year after I left, or 2 years after I left, or something like that. But she...
Well, theater and English go hand in hand.
She is, even when she was in her English class, she was quite the outgoing actor type person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, and she's done a lot of good things for the drama program there. Like now they have a full on.
They have an AV class, right?
Yeah, they have.
They had an AV
both
class
sides
when I was in school too, taught by a teacher that doesn't know anything about AV, and is the reason I got expelled. By the way, side note.
We'll talk about that some other time.
Okay.
Anyway.
Where were we?
We were talking about Shakespeare.
We seriously rabbit tracked.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
No, actually, we didn't. We were talking about Shakespeare.
Well, no, I mean we rabbit tracked in the sense of we started a subject and then that subject took us to another and took us to another and took us to another.
But we're still talking
They more or less led right back to where we started.
It did.
But we're
yeah.
still talking
come
about
full
theater,
circle.
though.
Yeah. Well, it's all the world is a stage and the men and women merely actors.
No, they're merely players.
Merely players. Player. Shakespeare was gangster. Truth be told.
Straight up.
I believe it.
Yeah. He was a pimp.
Hustler.
Drop it like it's hot.
You know what's
I mean,
funny
this is the
he,
man who built off the side of the riverbank just because the city told him he couldn't have a theater, so he's like, fine, I'll build my theater outside of the city. Ha.
Valid.
You know,
and then it was the Queen's favorite thing to do.
He was regularly getting in trouble for having his girlfriend in the plays. Did you know that?
I did actually know that because at the
because
time
in
women were not allowed
women
to be
weren't
in
allowed
theater.
to be on the stage, and so that's why all the women's roles were played by men. But he would regularly sneak his girlfriend in,
And dressed like a man,
and play one of the male roles.
And play one of the male roles.
and he would get in trouble for it all the time.
That's funny.
'Cause he was
and
that
explains
guy.
a couple of his shows.
Well, yeah, you read some of the stories and you're like, why is this like this?
Why does this character act this way? Oh,
this character was meant to be played by a woman?
Yeah.
I see. So
And now suddenly Twelfth Night makes so much more sense.
it does, doesn't it? Yeah,
doesn't
12th
actually
12th
most
night.
of the stuff.
The problem that I have with Twelfth Night is that people in our current culture take it, and they try and fit Shakespeare into this box. They
try to fit it into their box.
They try and fit him into the current gender confusion box,
gender fluid box.
and it was not.
No.
It was very much not. Shakespeare pointed out on a regular basis, and I think this is the reason why I quote unquote don't like Shakespeare, is that all of my experience with Shakespeare has been under that
Umbrella?
under that first umbrella of the current gender fluid, artistic, artsy, huge air quotes, culture, and it offends me. And then when you actually sit down and read Shakespeare, like Twelfth Night was the play we were in. When you read Shakespeare and you think, oh, well, this is a, if you think about it with the current culture, you're like, this is a women empowerment show, that is talking about the woman being, dressing like a man so she can fit in, blah, 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 blah. And in reality, it was not any of that. He was talking about PTSD.
Right.
The entire play is about post-traumatic stress disorder. Of course, back then they didn't have that terminology, but it's talking about an uncle.
Actually, the correct term is more than PTSD. What the uncle's character
Flack
actually
happy.
had? No. What the uncle actually had was survivor's remorse. That is what he
right,
had.
which and mixes in with that PTSD from the war,
and he totally captures the society's complete and lack of total care at all.
right, and their willingness to focus on something completely different.
Yeah.
To take it away. I mean, so let me explain. So the story, because Corbin's looking at me kind of funny right now, because you were in the play, and so and I tried to bring this up, by the way, in the production, and I got shut down, kind of hardcore, but we won't go there. So basically,
since you're no longer part of that
right,
acting
yeah,
troupe.
since I'm not part of the troupe. The story is about Uncle Toby and his niece. She lives with him at his villa or his house or wherever, in
I think it's actually a manor.
in the manor. And his brother and son,
He's
and
pretty
his
high
nephew.
status, so it would be a manor.
So basically, you have Uncle Toby, and then you have his brother and his two children, which are the son and the niece. The brother and the son died in war that they went to with Uncle Toby, and the niece came to live with Uncle Toby.
And Uncle Toby
survived. And so the side story of the two wealthy twins that are male and female, and then they get separated in a storm on the ocean, and they each think the other has died. And so the daughter, the female, dresses up as a man to work in the court with the king for survival, or for the prince or lord or whatever,
Somebody.
he was. Yeah. And so
he was royalty.
Yeah, he was royalty. And so the story is about Uncle Toby's struggle to find meaning in his life now that his brother and his nephew have died, and he's the one who survived, and he shouldn't have, because he didn't have any kids in the first place. And so there's all of that existential struggle there. And so then the daughter, who is also grieving, and her form of grief is to take over the house. As the runner of the house. And so there was
and part of that has to do with the fact that Uncle Toby's character is a just slap happy blithering drunk, because it's his only coping mechanism.
It's his only coping mechanism. And so what I did, for at least for the character, because I played Uncle Toby. So what I did for the character is I tried to draw out the fact that he was, because we had this conversation during rehearsal, and so I kind of shifted my character so that I could portray this better, and did a little bit of research on a couple of friends of mine and some people that I know that have PTSD and survivor's guilt, stuff like that, and I tried to portray that into that character as within the realm of, you can only go so far as an actor. You still have a director that's directing the show and producing and all that stuff. And so within that realm, I tried to push that a little bit. And I actually had a couple of conversations with the girl who played the niece
opposite of you.
Played my niece in the show. Her name is Kylie. She's phenomenal. She's actually in Los Angeles now.
Yeah, I know. I actually saw her at the Prescott Valley Kia dealership where I worked the other day.
Yeah, she's back in town for a couple days. And we got to chat at church on Christmas Eve, which was really nice.
Oh, nice.
But she's doing really good over there. She is a phenomenal actress.
Oh yeah.
Really, really, it was, you know what? I will say that cast was a solid cast.
Oh yeah.
We had a
cast.
blast. I mean, we had a lot of fun. There was really good acting.
I have an exception with one of the actors, but that's besides the point.
Is it the same exception I have? Probably.
The brother, the twin brother.
That's
the exception I have.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
honestly,
then there's that.
It's the only character that I thought was not casted correctly.
I have two then, if that's the case. That one and the my partner guy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
And it's nothing to do with him in particular. It was the casting of.
You know what?
He just doesn't fit that role.
Honestly,
so
you know what? I totally blocked out his character because of how terrible he was.
In that character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you know what? You're right. Okay. So two exceptions then. You're right.
Yeah, I forgot about that
I
character
do.
too.
I've
See,
had
you block him out of your brain because you're just like.
I've made friends
so
with him.
bad.
We are friends, and so I think from a director standpoint and a producer standpoint, I think that in the right role he would do really, really well, with the correct direction and the right act and the right coaching. Because I've had some good conversations with him, and I think he has the talent. It's just never been exploited.
Right.
It's always been put in the wrong.
It's always been put in the wrong way, So, but it is neither here nor there. The other one, though, however, dear God.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother story. We're not going to talk about that.
Yep.
Not for fear of anything. If they ever hear this, they'll be like, I know who he's talking about. But there's history there as well. So
yeah. While we are on the topic of this, they did cut some of the script to make the length a little more reasonable for that show, didn't they? For 12th
correct.
Night?
Yes, correct.
Do you think anything that they cut out might have affected how the story was told?
Yes.
I do believe so. Yeah,
dramatically changed the story.
It's been a while since I've actually read the full script, and compared the two with what was cut and what should have been in there.
There was a whole character that was cut out.
There was a whole character that was cut out.
Oh wow.
Of the story.
It actually what's interesting is that what we're talking about right now with the way that the story, because you were confused by saying like, I didn't see that at all with Toby's character. Well, when you add in all that extra character,
which is where we got this
and
from.
all that story,
yeah.
You realize, oh gosh, that's what this story is about. And this other story, which the way that the play was directed made the other story the main part of the story.
Right.
If you look at it from the perspective, oh wait, this is actually the main story. And not to say that Shakespeare, it's very possible that Shakespeare did it that way on purpose.
Right.
to where the other part of the story is the main part of the story. Because that was one of the things that Shakespeare did all the time, and this is actually one of the few things I like specifically about Shakespeare is that he used to go out of his way to poke at society.
Well, that's what made him, and that is why the lower, strong air quotes, the lower class, right? The folks that paid the penny seats.
Right.
That's why they went to the theater so often, because they lived that.
Yeah.
They lived in that, and he wasn't just poking at society. He was poking at the royalty.
Oh, absolutely.
He was poking at the monarchy, and he was poking at the, dictatorship and the harsh conditions that they were imposing on their subjects and the serfs.
And you look at stuff like actually Romeo and Juliet. To talk about the classic one that you always think of when you hear Shakespeare. It's not Shakespeare is not or Romeo and Juliet is not a love story. Romeo and Juliet is Shakespeare poking at organized crime. That is what that story is about.
It's twofold, though. It's not just organized crime. It's organized crime and arranged marriages within the royalty.
It's within organized crime.
Within organized crime.
But what I'm saying is that the reason
Suddenly the gangster adaptation makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. You didn't realize that was what that was about?
No.
Well, so essentially you have to change their names, change the two family names to the, I don't know, let me think of two Italian names. The Nunziatos and the Giambanis, right?
There it is.
They're two mob families vying for power. That is essentially what the story is. And what he was poking at is a lot of the issue with organized crime in the United States is that in the case of the United States, organized crime happened because of complicit politicians, right?
Right.
In Shakespeare's day, organized crime existed because the leaders of the families were royalty, dukes, and noblemen, and so
dukes and knights,
and so the
earls.
What's his name? I don't remember what his name is in the actual play. What his official title is, but essentially the police officer,
right?
The one who's constantly telling them, "You guys need to stop fighting with each other. I'm going to start arresting people." His hands are really tied in the whole story, and that's the reason why he's constantly threatening them, but can't really do anything. Like even when Romeo kills Tybalt, yeah, and even Tybalt kills Mercutio and gets away with it. He kills him in cold blood. He gets away with it, and so here's Romeo. He goes to get vengeance on Tybalt, and when he kills him, the cop can't even arrest him. The only thing he can do is say, "You have to leave."
That's true.
Okay.
His hands are totally tied because of the fact that it's organized crime. He's part of organized crime, and so his hands are completely tied. It's this great story where it's like Shakespeare's like, "Look at it. Look at it. Don't turn away. Look at it."
Yep.
And he does it over and over and over again with all of his plays. If you look at all of his plays, you find these questions, these questions that he's asking of society, like, why are we doing this? Why are we okay with this?
I think we need a new Shakespeare.
Anyway, with that being said,
really poke at that.
It is the bottom of the hour.
Wow, we're already at the bottom of the hour.
Well, pretty close to it, anyways.
Dang.
We may be a few minutes off because we were recording for a good little bit before we started. So.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, I think we do need a new Shakespeare, which I think we have some of that.
I think we do. I think we've got a couple of guys that are
there. There have been some movies that have seriously pointed at that issue, but it's bottom of the hour.
So before we do the bottom of the hour, real quick, I did the research.
Okay.
From where we lived on Gail Gardner to Mile High Middle School, which is where I went to school, It is 2.2 miles.
Okay.
It's a 35-minute walk.
Okay.
From where we lived to Granite Mountain Middle School is 1.9 miles.
Okay. So they're about the same.
Still a 35-minute walk.
Yeah, it's about the same.
8 minutes by bicycle, which is how I used to ride it. Of course, uphill and downhill and all that fun stuff.
Well, yeah, it was
But-
Prescott.
I'm actually kind of glad I didn't go to Granite Mountain, because certain people that I have in my life went to Granite Mountain. Yeah.
We won't say any more about that. It's the bottom of the hour.
So yeah, bottom of the hour.
This is PodBros, a production of Sound Bros Productions.
Productions.
We are on...
Productions.
There you go. Thank you.
You did it!
Yay!
We are on iTunes.
Podbean, iTunes, Google Play,
Spotify.
YouTube, Spotify. YouTube when YouTube decides to auto-upload.
So yeah, we have random episodes on YouTube. It's great.
Yeah, actually, you know
Yeah,
what?
sounds about right for YouTube.
Let me pull that up.
What?
Because
Said yeah, sounds about right for YouTube.
Well, they upload them every 24 hours, right?
so they do. Yeah, they auto-upload every 24 hours per the last, but it's only 24 hours. So there's been a couple of times where we've done like a late show and then a midday show, and we upload within that time, and so it
So
doesn't
what
take
I don't
it.
understand is why they aren't automatically uploading all of our other episodes.
And just doing it.
Like every 24 hours, it just automatically uploads an episode,
Do it.
regardless
YouTube
of
is dumb.
what the new ones are, right?
Do it.
Right.
Do it.
Do it.
I am the Senate. Do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand that. Okay, so let's see. We have, yeah, so it's 21, 22, 24. Oh, yeah. 12, 14, 16, 21, 22, and 24 are the uploads.
We'll eventually have them all on there.
Yeah, we'll get them up there, someday.
Anyway,
Sometime.
now that we're done with the bottom of the hour, let's talk about the weather real quick, and then we can go back to talking about this fun subject we've been talking about.
It's actually a good subject.
It is a good subject.
So right now, it is clear outside.
Lies.
Yeah, that's what I said too when I saw it. I just reloaded it. The
Know
page
what?
again to
Know
make
what
sure.
sucks at this game?
It you know what it is? It's when the weather is transitioning from being cloudy to being clear to being cloudy again, that they have issues with the site. Because it says clear, and then on the thing down at the bottom it says today, mostly cloudy. It's like, which one is it? Clear or mostly cloudy?
Yeah, right?
Well,
So
clearly it's mostly cloudy.
So it's 37 degrees right now, 51% humidity. The dew point is 21 degrees Fahrenheit. There was, if you were listening to earlier episodes, there was a 20% chance of snow today and tomorrow. And now there is no precipitation at all in the forecast. Matter of fact, it's going to get clear and sunny and going to stay clear and sunny for the rest of the week.
Ooh, that'll be nice.
And hopefully it will be clear and sunny up until next week, because next week is conference.
Yes.
Which I'm very much looking forward to.
Which means I'm going to need you to come and help me do podcasts.
As long as I am not working, I can do that.
You could always,
So.
hang out in the parking lot and do it.
Yeah, that'll go.
Hey, what are you guys doing out there?
That'll go great.
Nothing.
That'll go great.
Nothing. We're not
Yeah.
doing anything. What are you talking about?
Good grief. So, tomorrow.
What about
It's New
tomorrow?
Year's Eve.
It is still New Year's Eve tomorrow.
So, happy Kwanzaa. No, wait, that's not right.
We passed that already. It was Thursday last week.
So here's a fun story. A group of cowboys helped police catch a car thief who crashed into a horse trailer in Las Vegas.
Oh, I think I saw that article.
The man running from the cops thought it would be a good idea to run through a bunch of cowboys.
He wanted to see a man about a horse.
And he was and he was right there to film it all, this guy. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department spotted a car that was reportedly stolen and tried to stop it. One of the people in the stolen car jumped a fence at the park and began running across the fairgrounds. That's when the cowboys got involved. By the time I had my rope up and the suspect had his hands up right when I was thinking about roping him. So they were about to rope the dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't mess around with the Cowboys. They'll rope you and hog tie you.
Yeah, said Caden Cox. He's a cowboy and a professional cattle roper. That would have been a bad day. Would have been a bad day for
Just
you.
running and you just suddenly feel a rope tie around you and you're like, ah, crap.
Yep, I'm in trouble. The best part of the whole deal is when the helicopter flew over us and said, "Good job, ropers," or something like that. Just made our day.
That's
Cowboys
funny.
are goofy.
So did
that
he
was
actually
good
rope
stuff.
him, or did he not get a chance to?
No,
rope
the guy just stopped to put his hands up because he was ready to rope him.
Oh,
Yeah.
because that would have been really funny.
He-
Rope him.
he
and
pansied
then,
out.
Run over, and the horse is like pulling him back. He and they tie
Hog
his
ties
legs and,
the one leg and two hands.
puts
and
his
he's
hands
got
up in
one
the air.
hand up.
no, because they tie it, and then they let go, right? 'Cause it's
Actually,
all
there's
about
there's
it's all
a
about the
video.
time.
There's a video about that. Some guy roped a dude that was running down the street from the cops.
Oh yeah,
I saw that. Yeah, I saw a
I have
video.
to look that
I
up.
have to look
Because
that
that
up.
sounds really funny.
So that was my good news note for the today.
So apparently, there has been some issue about the New Year's Eve firework display in Sydney, Australia. So if I'm going to talk about weather here for a minute.
wait, the New Year's Eve fireworks display in Sydney, Australia.
So if you know anything about,
I heard fireworks display Sydney, Australia, and New Year's Eve, but my brain took them all in different times,
Separately?
and so it
Nice.
put them all together wrong. I was like, wait, what?
so if you know anything about weather, you know that when the west coast of the North and South American continent gets an El Nino, it means that there's a large body of warm water that moves back and forth between the Pacific Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have an El Nino, the warm water stays on the west coast of the United States instead of moving to the east coast, the east coast of the South Pacific in Asia, that area of Asia. So, and the reason it's called El Nino is because at Christmas time, way back when the Spanish were colonizing and the Portuguese were colonizing Southern and Central America, one of their biggest food sources during the winter, when all the warm water was on the other side of the ocean, they didn't know that, but it would get really cold on the west coast of the North and South American continent, and cold water animals like crabs and lobsters would move closer to the shore.
Oh, okay.
Because of how much colder it was, they could move closer and they would have new areas where they could eat. Because they're bottom feeders, but they would move closer and have a new area to eat at. And so the Spanish settlers, I guess you could say, would farm the lobsters and crabs that were closer to the shore. And one year at Christmas time, the water was warm and there was no crabs and lobsters, and so they called it El Nino, which means the child.
Huh.
In terms of the Christ child. So anyway,
El Nino.
when that happens,
Donde
when you
está
have an
el
El
baño?
Nino
Oh,
and the warm water doesn't switch to the South Pacific, the South Pacific experiences a period of time of increased temperatures. It gets a little bit warmer because the cold water, when the water is colder, there's less humidity. And so everything's drier, and it gets you get that hot, dry kind of thing, and there's lots of fires that'll happen. And so one of the many indicators of an El Nino year is you'll start getting all these islands that have fires on them. There's actually a map on the internet you can look up where it shows where there are fires, uncontrolled fires burning anywhere in the world. And if you look on this map, and I've done this a couple times when I've taken weather classes, you can actually see all of the moisture and precipitation that's happening on the west coast of the United States and Mexico and all those countries there on the west coast. And then you can look at the South Pacific and all these islands are burning.
right.
Even Australia, sections of Australia will be burning. So that's, I think, what this situation is about, is that we are in an El Nino year.
And so they have to be careful when they set off their fireworks.
And so they're concerned that the fireworks will start a fire, which is really weird because they do their firework display in the harbor,
Which is made of water.
which is mostly water.
I'm confused.
So I'm not sure. I guess there was some kind of big protest or something about the fireworks.
I have a bit of sad news. Do you have your fireworks thing up?
Oh, no, I turned it off already.
Oh, okay.
Why?
So it is today is Monday the 30th, correct? Yesterday there was the tragic, bittersweet. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
The bittersweet shooting at the church in Texas.
Right.
And just a side note here, if this is a reminder to everyone that the reason why we have a Second Amendment.
Yep.
Is what this is.
Yep.
I'm not making a political statement right now. I'm simply pointing out the fact that this crazed gunman only was able to kill 2 before he was dispatched, and we have 2 unnecessary deaths as opposed to
26, which
was the previous
2
one.
years ago in Texas.
Yeah, in Texas. And so I just read, and I'm going to read this real quick here. I just read a post that was done by the protector, the gentleman who fought back. Mm-hmm. His name is Jack Wilson, county commissioner. Apparently, he's a former police officer, I guess, and he runs the church security. And he said, "I just want to thank all who have sent their prayers and comments on the events of today, which was yesterday. The events at West Freeway Church of Christ put me in the position that I would hope no one would have to be in. But evil exists, and I had to take out an active shooter in church. I'm thankful to God that I have been blessed with the ability and desire to serve him in the role of head security at the church. I am very sad in the loss of 2 dear friends and brothers in Christ. But evil does exist in this world, and I and other members are not going to allow evil to succeed. Please pray for all the members and their families at this time. Thank you for your prayers and understanding." So, we at PodBros are in support of being armed. The amount of guns that's just in this room alone right now is awesome.
Good stuff.
But be armed, be safe out there, and our thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to that church over there and those people that have lost a loved one. Not just the church members, but the family members of those people. So, be wise
and
arm yourselves.
I'm going to take this moment to take it one step further, because the thought is that crime can only happen with guns. Correct. And the truth of the matter is that it can't, because just 2 days earlier, there was that stabbing at that Hanukkah celebration in New York, and 5 people were stabbed. And
because there was violence outside of just a gun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There can be violence can be brought with anything. Violence can be brought with bare hands.
Indeed.
Be prepared to protect yourself.
Yeah. So,
anyway,
moving on to another subject, let's hear from Corbin a little bit. Corbin, why don't you I don't know, what do you got? You got some fun story for us or something like that? I'm going to step out for just a moment. I'll be right back.
See.
That's why you're here.
Oh, well,
talk, buddy.
I mean, we do have the one thing. So, I actually what's today, the 29th, 30th?
Today is the 30th.
It's about 12 days ago on the 18th, I actually was at a friend's house off Robert Road in Prescott Valley, and a 72-year-old man flew around the corner and onto Robert and took out the back end of my car.
Nice.
Completely totaled it. Rear wheel was turned 90 degrees. Looked like some sort of space car, minus the fact that the entire back end was crumpled in.
So it looked like, maybe like the DeLorean from Back to the Future.
Yeah. Like, if the wheel was supposed to go that way, it would have been cool. But
it's not supposed to go that way?
Yeah,
nice.
no.
So, what happened with that?
So, basically, I was inside when it happened, and it sounded like something was rolling down the road. So all of us got up and got out of the house, and suddenly I didn't see my car, and I was like, oh boy. So we go over there, and this guy in a Prius had plowed my car a good 15, 20 feet down the road, took out the speed limit sign, uprooted some of its foundation, took out 2 mailboxes.
Solid.
Pushed a little bridge somebody had into their yard a little ways down, and then rammed my car into a fence, which is the only thing that stopped him.
Dang.
My dad was talking with the police officer after it happened, and there were no brake marks. There's no sign that the guy had tried stopping, and the two of them agreed that if he hadn't run my car into the fence, he would have taken my fence clear into the neighbor's yard and taken their car
Nice.
and made it a 3-car pileup. So
was he okay? Was he like impaired or
unhurt, not impaired, just some fella who just really did not care that day, I guess.
or just didn't care for your car?
Exactly.
What kind of car do you have?
Before it was a 2008 Toyota Corolla.
Oh, okay.
And,
Maybe he just didn't like Corollas.
Maybe, it could have been that. It could have been maybe he didn't like Prescott Motors. That's the company that I got the car from originally.
Or maybe he had just been told that Priuses are crappy cars and was like, "Oh yeah, let's see how crappy of a car it is," and just like plowed into your car. Maybe he was being malicious.
Maybe he was proving a point. You're right. That could have been it. And the saddest part about that is that when the tow truck pulled his Prius out of the crunched remains of my vehicle, only the front bumper or front fender part was hanging off a little bit on the right. Otherwise, that vehicle suffered. What?
So that brief pause was we got a mouse.
Got him.
So anyway, you were saying so you said the front bumper was all that was hanging off after the tow truck pulled him out, right?
Yep. There was basically no damage to his car save for that.
That stinks, man.
Yeah, it also makes me really consider who hates Priuses so much that they spread around this thing about them being little tin cans.
Well, I do know that when they first built Priuses, and actually a lot of the smaller vehicles, during the testing of them, they did have some issues with they would literally like crush to nothing.
Wow.
Like, they do like the dummy test, and the car would like run into the brick wall or whatever, or a concrete wall, and it would just be like pancake status when they were done.
Wow.
So I do know that at least with some of the smaller, like those like 2-person cars,
Yeah.
I know that they've like it's like a mesh, like metal mesh, like titanium metal mesh cage that won't collapse.
Right.
So I'm not surprised that Prius is similar to that, because the cars are, I'm not surprised that the cars are beast cars like that.
Okay.
So because of how small they are and everything, and they can actually spend, because those cars have less, I guess you could say they have less hardware because they're more electric.
Right.
Because a Prius is like a hybrid.
Right.
So it has an engine, but it has the battery that mostly runs the engine and everything. So there's less of the old engine parts that used to be part of a car in there, so they can use a little bit of the weight that they've gained, that they've saved by having all that extra stuff out of there for structural integrity, which is kind of cool. So
okay.
So I guess but your car did not fare well.
No.
I mean, it did fare well.
Exactly. But yeah, so that car has since been taken to Phoenix, where they're going to auction it for scrap.
Nice. So it's totaled.
Yeah.
Completely totaled.
Yeah, the rear axle was broken.
He broke the rear axle. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did that once with one of my. I didn't break it. I bent it. I bent the front axle of my first car. The first car that I bought, I should say, not my first car. First car I bought. I had a Toyota Camry.
Yeah.
89 Toyota Camry, and I fell asleep on the way home from work one morning, and we have these terrible things called roundabouts all over our city, and my wheels hit, because I do this really weird thing when I drive. I don't know if other people do this, but my body will continue to drive the vehicle when I fall asleep.
Right.
And not by like, I'm not saying like,
well,
I'm not saying like, like someone's asleep and they're like drifting all over the place. Like, the majority of the time that this has happened to me, I wake up and I'm still in the lane and I'm still going where I need to go. And in some cases, in one case in particular, I was driving home. It was like 2-3 in the morning, and I was driving through an area where there is a turn and a stop and a turn and a stop, and then a straightaway and then a stop and then a turn. And I fell asleep before that and woke up driving up to the light after all of those.
Wow.
With someone in the vehicle with me who had no idea I was asleep.
Wow. That's
Sleep driving?
That's some pretty good muscle
So
memory there.
So
I don't know. Is it truly sleep? I'm back, by the way. Is it
I
truly
thought there was
sleep,
just somebody else sitting in your chair.
or is it just a disconnect on your brain? Because I've had the same thing happen. I left San Francisco on Highway 5, I
Okay.
believe it is in California.
got on the 5.
Got on the 5, got on the highway, and it's a 12-hour drive from San Fran to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I fell asleep just outside of, quote unquote, strong air quotes, fell asleep
Okay.
just outside of San Francisco, and I woke up pulling into the driveway in Los Angeles.
Dang.
12 hours later, that includes bathroom breaks and gas stops all the way down. I don't remember the drive at all.
Dang.
Was someone in the vehicle with you?
Nope.
Okay. So
It was the last time I drove that too, because it freaked me out too bad.
the reason I'm
I
saying
was
that
like,
is
dear
because
goodness.
I was having a full-on conversation.
Oh, dang.
And I do not remember the conversation. I do not remember the drive. But I remember waking up, speeding towards the light, and being like, oh my gosh, and, pinning my brakes and everything. And the guy was like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm good. Nothing's wrong. It was one of those like, whoops, So,
Dang.
anyway, to finish my story, so I woke up driving towards the roundabout, and my brain had already turned the wheel to go around the roundabout when I woke up. And so I freaked out and didn't turn the wheel all the way, and I hit the curb in the center of the roundabout with my wheel turned.
Oh, no.
And it bent the whole front axle. I kept on driving. I actually drove the car for another year and a half before the car ultimately it bit the dust. I turned around at an area that wasn't finished being worked on, and the road had like this big dip on it, and I punched a hole through my exhaust.
Oh, no.
And my car lasted another like 3 or 4 months after that, and it was toast. So it had all sorts of issues. By the time I was done with the car, the transmission fluid was literally pouring out of the vehicle.
Wow.
Just to get the car going, I would have to put a quart of transmission fluid in there to get it to switch gears. It was pretty bad. So,
Like it was
anywho,
expensive to drive at that point too.
no, it wasn't too expensive. I mean, it was still when I had the car when it was in its prime, before I broke stuff on it, that I didn't have money to replace. That was the issue, was that I didn't have money to replace the stuff that had broken. I was getting 27 to 30 miles to the gallon.
It's pretty good.
Going 400 plus miles on a 12-gallon tank, 10-gallon tank, is pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah.
So, have you damaged any cars? Wink, wink.
Pick one.
You destroyed your first car, didn't
I
you?
wrecked the first car, yeah.
Me too.
That was with my brother in the car,
You
actually.
put Isaac's head through the to the dashboard, didn't
Through
you?
the dashboard, into the dashboard, yeah. His seatbelt broke, actually, and he face planted on the dashboard.
We have hard heads.
Yeah. And then I had to pull him out of the car over the stick shift, over the gear shift, and then carry him down the street to my friend's house, covered in blood. That was fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Probably with I killed my brother going through your mind the whole time, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. It was. You want to talk about post traumatic? That was.
Yeah, seriously.
That was brutal. The when the only the sound that you hear. So we came to it. So what happened was we dropped a friend off. We were in Diamond Valley, and there's a road that takes this curve and then goes up a hill. Mm-hmm. And so I took the curve probably a little bit quicker than I should have been going.
Probably.
And there was dirt at the bottom, and I started to slide. and felt as if I was going to flip over. So I corrected by turning into the turn, or turning into the slide, which is what you're supposed to do, and just barreled through the culvert and slammed into the side of this guy's driveway. It was a pretty hard hit. My seatbelt held. I had the bruise on the shoulder and the waist, and so when we came to the stop and the slam had stopped, I smelled smoke, and so I'm kind of in this panic moment of the car's gonna explode, we're all gonna die, type thing, and the only sound I heard was him moaning.
Nice.
Just that deep guttural, like you can do nothing else. Your head's been traumatized. Your body's been traumatized, and you're just like, that. Right. That was the only sound, and so it was brutal. It was brutal. So, but he's okay. I mean, a scar on his knee or leg or whatever it was from the car itself. The car, of course, was totaled. I had it for a grand total of a week.
Nice. Wow.
Yep, I'd gotten my license on that Monday and got in the accident. That was Friday. So it was actually less than a week, 4 days.
Dang.
So that was my first experience with an accident. That was my first experience with, having somebody in the car and realizing that as the driver of the vehicle, you are responsible for these other people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That hit me pretty heavy. Then, of course, it being my brother, who I was at the time was very, very close to. Isaac and I were really close growing up. And then, of course, my first experience with power-hungry, over-the-top law enforcement.
Oh, so, yeah.
That was the first sheriff to show up on the scene. There was a lady that came outside and was like, "I heard the crash. Do you need me to call the cops?" And I was like, "No, I'm okay. We're all right." I'm like, I had heard stories, but I was like, I don't want to deal with police officers right now. I don't know any of that, Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, no, we're good. Thank you. And so we took my brother up the street, and so no ambulance was called or anything like that. And then the first sheriff, actually, because it's in the county, the first sheriff to show up, really, really nice guy. Could see that I was obviously visibly shaken. I'm sitting in the back seat of the squad car. Just, it was brutal. I mean, you just got in a car accident. My head almost slammed on the steering wheel. I had no control over the vehicle. That type of thing.
Right.
And so he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm 17. I'm just, I'm not malicious, not drunk, not high, just lost control. I mean, it happens. Just driving fast, and so he was being very, very courteous. And the other guy came over. Another car pulled up. He came over and read me the riot act, man. He was in my, "You're going to jail. You killed your brother." I mean, the whole 9 yards. Just, and it was just like, what? And so he actually wrote me a citation for failure to control the vehicle.
Failure to maintain speed to avoid a collision or an accident?
No, it was actually failure to control the vehicle.
Oh, okay.
Literally failure to control.
Interesting.
Which, be 100% honest with you, anybody who's ever driven a vehicle, that's a bogus ticket. I understand what it was for, and I understand why he gave it to me. I get it now. As a much older adult, I get it. I understand his point.
The ticket he should have given you was reckless endangerment.
If we're gonna be legitimate, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. The problem with that, and which is going to segue into what I where I'm going with this. The problem that I have with any of these laws is just like the foul in basketball, a moving violation. It's a non, what's it called?
No, it has to do with the ball.
Loose ball foul.
Loose ball foul, yeah.
Yeah, loose ball foul is an arbitrary, pointless foul.
That they use to arbitrarily give penalties
to people. And so failure to control, I believe, is one of those. The other side of that is you have a 17-year-old kid, obviously got his license 4 days ago. Reckless endangerment? I have no idea what that even is. Right?
What?
I don't know what at the time, right?
Okay.
I don't even know what reckless endangerment is. I don't know what failure to control is.
Okay.
Right? This is an opportunity to teach somebody.
Right.
As opposed to levying the law against
Well,
them.
and that's the reason why I said reckless endangerment would have been the better one to give, because then you can say what you were doing endangered your brother.
Right, and you can learn from it.
Yeah.
If you really are going to give out a citation. The other side of that is, personally, I don't think a citation was necessary. And that's not just because I was the guy driving the car.
Right.
I'm saying that if I was the police officer and I had assessed that situation, I wasn't belligerent. I was sitting there just silent and quiet.
Right.
Kind of honestly terrified that my brother was going to go to the hospital. They were going to find something horrible inside his brain and he was going to die.
Right.
I mean, literally, that's what was going through my head. I could care less about any of this other crap. I don't care. You can yell. I mean, he literally was like screaming at me, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. I don't know what you.
Well, and that probably.
I don't know why you're so upset.
That
but
probably incensed him more, because I've seen that happen many times.
where they get upset at that.
Where not even a law enforcement, someone who's in charge of something or whatever, they're very upset and they're yelling at you, and you're just kind of like, you do that thing where you kind of cock your head a little bit at them, and you're like, why are you yelling at me right now?
Yeah.
Why can't we be civilized adults together?
Yeah, we're human beings. Yelling is pointless.
People, you know who yells? You know who yells and screams? Toddlers who don't get their way.
Toddlers yell and scream.
Being passionate,
I will say,
getting loud and being passionate about
I will
something.
say there are times when you can raise your voice that are calculated.
Yeah.
I've done that in management. I had an employee that would not listen, just wouldn't listen, would look me dead in the eye, would hear what I said, and would go, yeah, okay, and then would screw up the project and cost hundreds of dollars.
Right.
And so I calculated the effect, I guess,
Right.
of raising my voice. And it did what it needed, because it blared through all of his millennial
His mental
lack
fog.
of pay attention,
The millennial fog.
the millennial fog. I like that.
Fog.
And he began to recognize and understand, and the next couple projects I had him do were perfect. They were spot on. And then of course I had to go in the other room and talk myself out of, having to raise my voice, because I don't like raising my voice.
Right.
I don't like to be.
Agreed.
I don't like that feeling. It feels like it's angry.
So car accidents. Since we're talking about car accidents,
Yes.
I mentioned that one, which wasn't really a car accident. I just kind of bumped into the center curb, and kept on going. On my way home from work, just recent. It was about less than a year ago. Mm-hmm. I actually no longer work at that job anymore. It was an overnight job. Hold on. Anyway, I was on my way home from work, and driving through. There's an area that was under heavy construction. They've since finished now, and it's actually kind of nice because you can drive through that area very easily. Over by the airport.
It was abysmal.
It was terrible. So this was right in the middle of all of that. We're driving single lane of traffic. Speed limit's 35 because it's a construction area. We're driving, and there's a big long line of cars, and I'm like, I'm exhausted. I'm driving home from 8-hour shift overnights. We get past the light right at the airport. I'm driving past the light, and everybody's turning off because there's a bunch of businesses right there by the airport. So everyone's pulling off, and I am accelerating through the intersection, and just in front of me, about, I don't know how far away he was, there's this car just stopped in the middle of the road. It's not near the turn, which, by the way, the turn was no left turn because it was a single lane of traffic and they didn't want any issues. He was just stopped in the middle of the road, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he stopped. I'm in the middle of accelerating. I slam on my brakes, like literally like that scene from The Incredibles where he's got both feet pressed down on the brakes. Mm-hmm. Literally both feet on the brakes, and I turn the car so that I don't hit him straight on. And I slid for a good 10 to 15 feet because it was a car that I just bought and the tires were trash. And apparently the brakes were crap too. And so my brakes literally locked. And it was kind of obnoxious because the last car that I had ABS brakes.
Right.
So on with ABS brakes, when you slam on the brakes, it doesn't slam the brakes engaged. It pumps the brakes.
So you actually slow down and stop.
So it's pumping the brakes, so it actually causes the wheels to continue spinning, which allows you to slow you down.
Right.
So
have more control.
And have more control. So what happened is my brakes literally locked, tires slid. There was a big long streak, and I hit into the back of his car on the corner. Corner of my car, front corner of my car, back corner of his car. I'm like, I check we're in the middle of the road. I'm like, crap, we're in the middle of the road. If anything happens, we're screwed. So he rolls forward, and I'm like, all right, cool. His car is good. I roll forward. I'm like, great, my car is good. This is fantastic. So we pull off into the turn that's right there. I stop my car, turn it off, and turn it back on to make sure it still works because I hit the front of the car, and I'm worried about something being damaged.
Engine and
the engine and the radiator
stuff.
And everything. So I'm like, okay, everything's good. I walk up to him, and he gets out, and he's just like, he has like this terrified, like petrified look on his face. And I'm like, either this is his first accident or something else is going on, because why was he stopped in the middle of the road for no reason? So I'm like, my brain goes into immediate assessment mode. Mm-hmm. And I walk up to him, I'm like, I tell him my name, I tell him I'm okay, and I immediately ask him, what's your name? Are you okay? Blah, blah. I'm just like bombarding him with the basic like medical questions. Like, obviously he's standing up looking at me, his eyes aren't dilated or anything like that. So he's not damaged from the accident.
Right.
For the most part, I mean, But he is like, and I'm like, let's look at, let's make sure your car is okay. Literally all that happened, this is why this triggered me, was your story about just the fender falling off. Literally, the bumper. I broke the little clip that connects the bumper to the back of the car. And I picked it up and put it back on. Done. Fixed. And he is freaking out. I'm asking him questions. I'm like, look at me, are you okay? He's like, like stumbling over his words and freaking out. And he's like, I have to leave. I can't deal with this right now. And I'm like, okay. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, yes, no ticket. Praise the Lord. Because if he leaves, we haven't called the police yet. We haven't done anything yet. We haven't even exchanged numbers yet.
Wow.
Nothing. We have done nothing. Mm-hmm. If he leaves right now, it is entirely in my boat. I could call the police and say it was a hit and run. Because technically speaking, it was. I hit him and he ran. Or I could just, get back in my car and drive home.
Right.
And so I'm like, you know what? And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm very, what's the word? I'm very cynical of police when it comes to car accidents. I've heard a lot of terrible stories. I've actually never heard this part of your story, Luke, but I've heard stories like that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not interested in this right now. I'm not interested in dealing with my insurance right now. Mm. I mean, any of that. So I got in my car and drove home. And literally, the only thing that is wrong with my car
is a dent in the bumper.
The turn signal doesn't work on the front.
And it looks
good. Well, I mean, it looks like it got trounced, but so we've told these kind of negative stories about police.
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear that we do actually appreciate our law enforcement.
I couldn't resist.
We're talking about the royal we.
The
here.
royal
we are
we.
actually.
No, indeed.
Yeah.
No. You're not part of this. This is the royal we.
This is the royal
You care about
we.
the police. So, this is what I was saying before the other day. Is that when I'm saying we, we're talking about the royal we, not you and me.
Well, I support the police as well.
So
I have a number of friends on the
and I
on
will
the
say
force,
and I will say that it's usually just.
There's always a few bad apples.
It's always that one or two people that are just like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And it's people like that facilitate, going into a Kansas City McDonald's. Or Kansas City? No, it's just in Kansas. In Junction City. Apparently a police officer received his coffee and scrawled on the receipt that they stick on the coffee.
Yeah.
It said effing pig.
Effing pig. Wow.
So
Wow.
And then you have Arizona police arrest man for twice showing up naked at a bar.
nice.
Police in Prescott have arrested a man after he twice showed up at a bar naked.
That's fun.
Police say that 69-year-old Leonard V. Hall entered the bar naked on Monday and stood before a female bartender who called for help. He then fled the scene and then came back on Christmas.
Oh, good Lord, man.
Because Merry Christmas, you didn't like it the first time. You're going to like it this time. Police say that Hall left before but was spotted the next day back in the parking lot of the bar again naked. He was arrested.
Spotted?
The Daily Courier of Prescott reports Hall is being jailed on suspicion of indecent exposure and trespassing.
Suspicion.
Butt was seen. His butt was seen later.
Yeah, they're not sure. That's suspicion of indecent exposure.
Well, maybe it was so tiny they couldn't see it.
Oh, and we went there. Lord of mercy.
All right.
And we're gonna have to
anyways.
bump up the rating on that one.
So
Oh, good grief.
you're the one who was talking about someone showing up.
It was
Indeed.
a news story. I was reading a news story.
A news story.
A nude story.
See, there it is. Fake nudes.
Fake nudes.
Just
You know,
couldn't
knowing how to
resist.
pick locks has really opened a lot of doors for me.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
You know, sometimes I feel like I'm an archaeologist because my life is in ruins.
Oh, I thought you were just gonna say old and dusty, but
Wow. See, this is why we brought Corbin on today,
Excellent.
just so for those moments.
So, do you know what happened today?
something.
Literally almost 100 years ago now.
Uh-oh. What happened?
The Soviet Union was established
Oh, dear goodness.
Wah, wah.
on December on December 30th. That's good.
You know, I've been having trouble with my roommates lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're concerned I'm using their kitchen utensils. But that's just a risk I'm willing to take.
Waka waka.
How do you comfort a grammar fanatic?
How?
There. Oh.
Get any more over there?
My grandma told me that her joints were getting weaker, so I told her to roll them tighter.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Drug joke.
I thought this was family friendly.
I said drug. I didn't. Never mind. You know, choking on sugar seems like a sweet way to die. Velcro. What a ripoff.
Ah!
Me and my receding hairline, we go way back.
Pretty sure that
Anything over there? You got anything?
I got a blink and you'll miss it 2-word joke for you. All right. Dwarf shortage.
You suck.
You asked for my input.
Wow.
You received.
Dwarf shortage.
That joke was a little ridiculous.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah, it wasn't too much of a tall person thing of me, was it?
I'm a tiny bit concerned.
You know, I give away my dead batteries free of charge.
Gosh.
A backwards poet writes in inverse.
Ah, it's good.
Yeah.
That's a smart people joke.
So there was this lady in Alabama who was.
I'm sorry, I believe you pronounced that incorrectly.
What?
Alabama.
Lady or was?
Continue.
Oh, Alabama. Sorry. Yeah, Alabama. There was this woman in Alabama. She was being kidnapped by this dude, and a citizen saw it and reported it to the police, and they rescued her. And this dude now is all over the place. Look, this is the guy who tried to kidnap her.
Oh, jeez. He's everywhere.
That's why I said that earlier, because it was like, why did you do stupid stuff? Now your face is all over the internet.
Everywhere. You know, did you hear about the small boy that swallowed some coins and was taken to the hospital? And his grandma called to see how it was, and the nurse said, "No change yet."
I heard that after they were done, the hospital was trying to nickel and dime them for the money that they needed.
Yeah, two antennas met on a roof and fell in love and got married. The ceremony wasn't much, but the reception was excellent.
That's good. That's good.
He drove his expensive car into a tree and found out how the Mercedes Benz.
Got any more over there?
Yeah, I cut my finger chopping cheese the other day, but I think I may have greater problems.
Isn't that the slogan that Trump was doing? Make America great
Make
again.
America great again. Yeah, he wasn't actually talking about anything other than cheese, because there's so much pre-grated cheese out there.
There's so many blocks of cheese.
Yeah, people need to start
graded.
grading again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I have a very unique story. All-girl heavy metal band achieves fame by dominating national stages, wearing hijabs and leather jackets.
Seems strange.
These three Muslim schoolgirls may not seem like a typical members of a heavy metal band, but that's exactly why they're continuing to dominate stages across Indonesia. Ferda Kurnia, Isi Siti Asia, and Widi Ramkwati, I suck at these names, all grew up as the daughters of poor farmers in rural West Java, a conservative region of the country.
Java? Like
prior to
where coffee
attending a
comes
music class in 2014, the girls had never even heard of metal music. But that's when their middle school teacher, Abba Urza, played them Toxicity by System of a Down.
Was it Jack Black who taught them how to play heavy metal music?
That would be really funny. Played them Toxicity by a System of a Down, and they immediately became hooked on heavy metal. Ezra, who is now their band manager, taught the girls how to play the instruments. The youngsters formed a band the very same year and dubbed themselves Voice of Bass Prut, which translates to noise in their traditional Sudanese language. Despite having to endure harassments and criticisms from the more conservative side of Indonesia, the Voice of Noise has played across the nation's most popular stages. They say my music is forbidden by my religion, she recalled to NPR. I'm a different musician because I'm a woman,
of course.
and I play metal music, but I'm wearing a hijab. Hijab is my identity, okay?
Of course she was talking to NPR.
Of course.
And now,
Kurna
on NPR,
added that her own
we will
parents
talk about heavy metal
had
music.
originally forbid her from playing heavy metal, as noise secretly became more and more locally famous.
Are
However,
you reading a story that's on NPR?
her parents became
Because
proud
I think
of her
you
passion.
need to talk like
I
this
am
from
not.
now on.
Oh, no.
When you're reading the rest of this story,
It's not an NPR story.
you should talk like this. Well, she was just
She talked to NPR.
talking to NPR about this. Support for NPR comes from
So, when Indonesia reportedly boasted a thriving underground heavy metal scene, Voices of Besbrot has become more and more popular across the nation. Their Instagram page alone has racked up more than 32,000 followers. The girls now hope that their music will help people to understand that Muslim girls can pursue their passions while still faithfully abiding by their religion. Wake up!
That's exactly it right there.
Oh,
Man,
jeez.
There is only
dozing
one.
off a little bit there.
To be honest, there's only one good reason to listen to NPR, and it's that they
And
play
it's the classical music
pretty
when they're
epic
not
classical
talking.
music when they're not talking. And
So
sometimes,
it's great for when you wanna
sometimes they
take a
play. Sometimes they play some new age electronic music in the evenings, and it's pretty phenomenal.
Huh.
So, but besides that, it's just stuffy people sitting around wearing sweaters with a little the little patch on their elbow, talking like this about a subject that no one really cares about at all.
Today I had tea and crumpets.
We now return to The Mice in the Attic by NPR.
Yeah, thank you. To the mathematician who thought of the idea of zero, thanks for nothing. I'd tell you a chemistry joke, but I know it wouldn't get a reaction.
Where are we past the hour?
Way past the hour.
Are we way past the hour again?
Oh, yeah. I just let it go because we were having such a good time.
All right. Well, that ends today's show.
Does it?
It does.
Does it though?
It's done now.
Are you sure?
Well, Corbin didn't really talk much, but he'll talk more next week when he's on again, because he'll be on again with us. Because Nick is going to be out of the show next week. Either that, or we're going to be doing late recording shows next week. We don't know.
I'm curious about something though. Before we end, do you know
It's too
why
late. We already
Cinderella was
ended.
thrown off the basketball team? It's because she ran away from the ball.
All right, we can just cut here and it'll be.
This has been a production of Sound Bros Productions. We are PodBros. We're on most of your podcast apps. Look us up. Drop us a like on Facebook. All that fun stuff. And here at PodBros, we hope you learned something.
Claustrophobic people
Oh, good God.
are more productive when they think outside the box.
Good
Do you
Lord.
see what you started?
I
This could have all been avoided.
I
if
could
you
have.
hadn't gone.
I could have. Anyway, we hope you learned something, because if you're not learning, you're dying. So stay alive and Happy New Year.
Yep. That.